We often talk about UX as it follows the same rules everywhere, but local reality changes everything. Market competition, hiring expectations, interview processes, access to opportunities. Today I'm speaking with Kardo, a product designer based in London, to understand how these factors shape the UX market there. Is the market still as strong as it used to be?
It's not like before you could go and find a quick contract. They still exist, but the market is a little bit tougher.
Who is most affected by recent changes?
I feel bad for juniors because it's very tough to start a job.
And what does it actually take to get hired today?
Now I see 6-stage interviews. I have been through it myself.
This is a practical conversation about how UX works in London right now. Let's look at it from the inside. Hi Kardo, I really appreciate you taking the time. And to begin, could you briefly introduce yourself, your background, and what you focus on today?
Hello, thank you for having me. I'm Kardo. I'm a product designer based in London. I have been a designer, be it UX, UI, product for the past 18 years. I've worked in agencies, in corporates, in startups. My background is mainly energy, health, and technology sectors.
Yeah, that's impressive. I've been mapping how UX actually works across different countries. And, London is obviously one of the most influential hubs globally. And at the same time, London is usually described as one of the toughest UX markets in the world. As you mentioned, you have worked in large organizations and with technology, with health, and have gone, I guess, through the recent downturn. So let me ask you, if the London UX market were a personality, how would you describe it today in one honest sentence?
Nervous. I do it in one word instead rather than a sentence. It's quite nervous. It's basically the market for UX designers used to be amazing in London. Within a day, you could find a job, for example, or you could contract anywhere you wanted. But at the moment, the market is a little bit quieter. There are reasons for it. One, companies don't go to UX agencies, for example. They hire internal staff. So basically, because of that, the market for UX is not great because companies hire directly. And yeah, it's not like before, like you could go and find a quick contract. They still exist, but the market is a little bit tougher at the moment.
Yeah. Basically, despite the fact it is short, nervous, but it is very descriptive.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It
Yeah.
used to be better, but I think it's becoming better again. I think it's
Yeah.
starting to pick up. I see more and more roles, but it's a little bit not as steady as before.
Yeah, so you mean, when we are talking about the downturn, you mean maybe layoffs. From your perspective, who felt that impact the most?
The most in terms of level of seniority, in terms of
Yeah, maybe, yeah, juniors, seniors, yeah.
I think I feel bad for juniors because it's very tough to start a jobs at the moment. But the people who have been affected most is in that mid to senior level. Normally in leadership, people are more secure, are better because there aren't really that many as seniors and middleweights, for example. And also outsourcing has a massive impact on the UX market in London at the moment. A lot of companies, a lot of agencies outsource.
You mean they're competing internally?
Yeah, so basically what they do is they send the roles to places like Far East, for example, or India or elsewhere. So most of the hands-on work, like middleweights and seniors, when the role is gone, they normally, from what I've experienced from places where I've worked, those
Yeah.
roles go to other countries, but the leadership stays in London. So in terms of product and UX design leads, the situation is better for us in London. I mean, there is still a lot of work and there is a lot of jobs, but it's just the market is not as it used to be.
Yeah. And, talking about the layoffs, I couldn't help but ask you about the hiring reality in the UK. If someone at the senior level were looking for a UX role in London, How high is the bar to get hired?
So the market has changed completely in the last year or two. Before, you would have one introduction in terms of meetings, and you would have one interview with the seniors or senior stakeholders, or your line manager would be line manager, and then maybe one as a team interview to just basically chemistry, maybe if a company wanted to long things out. But now I see six-stage interviews, especially for leadership. I see six stages. I have been through it myself, so it's much tougher than it used to be. Much tougher than it used to be.
Let me ask you, can you list them out? I mean, all these stages.
All the stages. Okay. So first stage is an HR stage. HR calls you and says, "You've applied for this job. Are you still interested?" And they ask you some questions around your background. Yes, I am interested. Then a team lead or your manager to be has an interview with you. That's another 40, 45 minutes, an hour maybe. And then after that, there is a task, whether it's portfolio presentation or doing a quick task, but usually it's a portfolio presentation. And then after that, another manager comes and speaks to you, somebody maybe from development rather than design. And then I have had sessions where I've actually had to speak to the CEO. And then after that, the final, if you go through everything, there is another HR call to basically talk about culture and if you fit within the company. And that is for leadership roles. You go through five or six interview stages, which is really, really long. And for me, it doesn't need to be that long. I have hired many candidates in my life, and I've never done more than two rounds. To me, if you don't figure out somebody in within two rounds of interview, either they are not the right person or you are doing something very wrong.
Yeah. Basically, what skills or experience seem to matter the most?
Unfortunately, a lot of job roles, they want you to have the exact skills as they are looking for, and they want you to have worked in the same industry. They tend to forget that UX is a transferable skill. I know the knowledge of a sector is important, but UX in itself, in terms of research, in terms of
Yeah, in general.
ideation, running workshops or whatever, there are transferable skills from one sector to the other. But it seems to be that companies now, because they have the luxury, because the market is flooded with designers, they can be a little bit more demanding in terms of the experience they need.
And given that context, let's talk about the remote work reality in the UK. From your experience, are most UX roles in the UK remote friendly or they office based, especially in London?
The remote working, it's still a big thing in London, which is great. It's fantastic. Um, the companies have started to ask people to go in twice a week, which is still is very good.
Yeah.
But there are companies, especially in the finance sector, now they want everybody back 5 times a day. People are not happy about it, but again, this is the company's policy, company's decisions. But in my case, for example, I work once or twice a week from the office, and sometimes I don't go in for 3 weeks. So it depends on the company, really. But yeah, people still prefer the hybrid model or the fully remote model.
Yeah, I think this is a perfect conditions when you have a chance to communicate with your mates and you at the same time you keep this work-life balance.
I love going into the office. I see my team, I see my teammates. You have conversation that normally take 15 minutes on a call. It takes 2 seconds. Yeah. But also I love being at home because I can put my head down and just do work without any kind of distraction. Yeah, pros and cons to both, but I think a mixture is the perfect balance, having both remote and on-site. Yeah.
Yeah. And like moving from the perception of the remote work, let's talk about another perception. People often assume that working in the UK comes with strong benefits. Even my impression is that United Kingdom companies offer a solid work-life balance and perks. From your experience, what counts as normal benefits and what would be considered truly exceptional?
So normal benefits in the UK are 25 days holiday. I think it's 8 days sick leave or something like that. Obviously, bank holidays and weekends. So these are the basics that come with any role. But then you have things like pension. That's one that is quite important, especially for 30 years and above, 30-year-olds and above. Pension is important. And then you get things like share benefits. So, for example, stocks and shares in the company. So basically, you have a share in the company. They give you shares. So if the share goes up, you basically get the benefits. Other benefits are bonuses, which is pretty normal bonuses based on how the company is performing and how is your individual performance. And then you get things like birthdays free, which is quite nice. Some companies do that. And then when you get to companies who really offer good benefits, you get things like private healthcare and dental care and all these things. It's very different. Normally, the bigger companies, they can offer a lot more benefits and better packages, basically. Smaller companies, they tend to do less.
Which is, yeah, completely understandable. Beyond benefits, let's briefly touch on the role UX actually plays inside these organizations. I mean, does UX shape strategy or mainly deliver what's already decided in the companies? How strategic the UX is?
I think it depends on the company again. Like at the moment, I'm working at a company. UX is pretty much a key part of strategy of the organization. I've worked in places where the strategy is all set and UX is basically just executing, which is not really great. But yeah, majority of the time, people have come to realize that the product is and the experience is what defines the brand reputation for companies, and they pay more and more attention to UX and they involve UX earlier on. There are also places where UX is not even involved. Everything is done by developers, which again is not it's not really good. At the end, they end up bringing UX in to fix stuff. But yeah, normally in London, in good organizations, UX is
Strategy,
part
yeah.
of the biggest strategy. Yeah.
By the way, do you have a product representative in your company? I mean, like product manager or product growth manager?
Yes, yeah.
I just want to ask you, do you feel that your responsibilities overlap?
Absolutely, yeah. When I started, you had to do UX, UI, and front-end development. And then that all broke apart and it all became specialized kind of skills. But now I see things coming back slowly, slowly, especially with Figma and design system and all these things. I mean, I'm a product designer, so I do UX and UI. But I see now even product managers, they go into Figma and use the design system and design concepts, which for me, it's great because it's testing ideas and stuff. So
Yeah.
there is a massive overlap. And some of my designers, they actually do the front end code for the full stack developers because we don't have any dedicated kind of front end development. So some of the designers actually do the front end code and they use AI, they use Figma, they use Zeppelin for all these purposes, which is, yeah, there is a lot of collaboration and the roles overlap, and slowly, slowly it's going back into a big overlap between them.
Yeah, completely agree. You know, yeah, it seems like it's getting much deeper and deeper. I mean, that overlap. And now, Cardo, I'd like to touch on accessibility, particularly from the perspective of visual impairment, which we both experience. And all in all, you know, accessibility is a major topic globally right now. From your experience, has your impairment changed how you approach design or how organizations respond to accessibility in practice?
Absolutely. I mean, since my operation, so basically I lost my 50% of my field of vision because of a brain operation. Ever since then, I think about design completely differently in terms of everything that I do is user first. Everything that I do is it needs to be researched and user tested and basically matching the accessibility guidelines and the requirements, both the UK legal requirements, but as well as the European Union's. And depending on where the companies operate, we have to adhere to that specific country's regulations. Unfortunately, I still see a lot of like big organizations that when you land on their website, something that millions of users or millions of customers go on it and it's completely inaccessible. There you see that a lot. Personally, I have a massive drum that I keep banging about accessibility everywhere I go. So in my organization now, it's something that we've started doing and going back through all the products and making things accessible, optimizing the stuff. The problem is because people or organizations, especially older organizations, never had to worry about these things. And now new regulations come in, but to them, it's a massive task and an expensive task to go through everything and making platforms accessible, color, typography, typescale, contrasts, screen readers, all these things, they think it's a massive task, but
By the way, do these regulations impede the design process?
I don't
Do
think so. I don't think the regulations impede design process. Actually, I think they are great. I think the thing is basically building a culture in the organization that design starts with accessibility in mind. UX starts with accessibility in mind. Development starts with accessibility in mind. I think that is the key thing is changing that mindset and changing the culture a little bit in terms of how to think when it comes to design and development. I don't think it's an impediment or slowing processes down. I think it's actually once you set it up right, you basically carry on doing that.
completely agree, yeah. And next, I couldn't skip the most talked about topic, AI. It seems, yeah, yeah, it seems it's changing workflows everywhere. And I want to ask you, do you feel like you can't do without AI anymore?
So for me, AI is fantastic. I love it. I use it every day. From ChatGPT to Figma Make, we use it pretty much at every stage. And I love it because it speeds up processes. So even things like simple stuff like image placement and concepts, you can do that with AI these days very quickly. And you don't have to go and troll through the web for specific images. Things like that that speed up your process. In terms of UX and in terms of design, the thing that I always say is AI is great. I use it. Everybody should use it. Everybody should make the most of the tools that we have, but we shouldn't rely on it completely because otherwise you'll end up with the same product that AI churns out for everybody. Your human empathy uh, could never be replaced by prompts and AI. And that's one thing I say to my designers, use it, but don't let it do your actual job for you, which is the empathy part, which is understanding the user and understanding the problem properly. So I'm not sure if it will ever get there. Probably it will, but for now, I think the human element is more important than AI in UX.
Yeah, absolutely. So, do you feel like you can do without AI anymore? I mean, let's imagine that tomorrow you don't have all these tools like GPT, Gemini, and etc.
That would be the ideal world coming back to you, isn't it? No, I really love ChatGPT, and that is because, like just today, for example, I used it to write copy for nearly 50 components, and it did it in 10 minutes rather than no, in 10 minutes. My prompts took 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Um, but before, I would have to sit down for a day at least just writing copy for those components. So I can live without it, but things will take a lot longer than they should these days. So I think it's fantastic for these kind of tasks like writing, generating stuff. But in terms of the thinking, I think it's not there yet.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And if you had to name 3 AI use cases actually happening in real projects, what would they be?
Generating copy,
Yeah.
uh, yeah, which is great. Figma Make, asking for different layouts. It will 100% get it. It will not 100% get it right, obviously. It probably is going to be wrong, but it's quite good to give you ideas on for things like layout and positioning and stuff like that. And from my line of work, image generation, AI tools that generate images and basically assets
Yeah.
for design. Even if it's not final assets, placeholders, and just stuff to give you an idea of what the page is going to look like, it's great because I don't need to go and look for assets, and then in the end, if it's not right, we have to go again and look for new assets. So, or you get the concept right, and then after that, you go and look for proper assets. So, for those things, I think three best
Yeah.
from my perspective, from my experience.
Yeah, it's great for outlining the general direction. Yeah. And before we wrap up, I'd like to do a quick lightning round. Just your gut feeling on a scale from 1 to 2. From 1 to 10. Yeah, I'm sorry. UX strategic influence in the UK.
A6,
Job security for designers.
A3,
Research maturity.
I would say 7.
And overall health of the UX market.
I'd say a 3.
Thank you. And now, the really last question. If you were advising a designer considering moving to London today, what should they realistically expect?
Great opportunities, but a tough market because we have some of the best companies to work for in terms of UX, whether it's agencies, whether it's technology, whether it's energy. Health is coming up more and more. It's becoming better because normally the technology in health service in the UK is not that great. The health service is amazing, but the technology is not that great. So there are a lot of great opportunities to do some really good work in London. But the market is very tough because it's saturated with designers and UXers or
Tech
developers,
specialists.
product designers. Yeah.
Thank you, Kardo. Yeah, it was a real pleasure speaking with you, and thank you for taking the time. Yeah.
Thank you very much for having me. It's a pleasure.
That was my conversation with Kardo about UX in London. What stood out to me is this. The market is still full of opportunity, but it's more demanding than before. Hiring processes are longer, competition is higher, and expectations are more specific. At the same time, senior and strategic roles remain relatively stable, especially for designers who can operate beyond execution. Every market evolves under pressure, and London is no exception. In the next episodes, I'll continue exploring how design really works across different countries. If you found this valuable, subscribe.